for joining us. Our IVCC Scholarship Workshop. This is something that we've been doing for the last couple of years, and we find it to be really a benefit to our students that we work with and parents that are able to join us and really get an idea of what is expected of the IVCC Foundation Scholarship application. So before we get started with a lot of the content that we want to share, we want to also mention that we have a whole team tonight, and I'm really, really proud that we were all able to get together virtually. I know really different, but I want to give everybody a minute to introduce themselves. So I'll start off. My name is Ezra Loveland, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services here at IVCC. And I'm going to turn it over to Quentin.
Hi, I am Quentin Overacker, Director of Admissions, Records, and Transfer Services at IVCC. I'll turn it over. I don't know if Gracelyn is otherwise tied up. Nope, there she is. Gracelyn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grayson Quessy. I'm the Student Recruitment Specialist here at IVCC, and I love reading scholarship essays, so send them to us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Kilmartin. I am the Writing Center Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Amy Alvarado. I'm a professional tutor in the Writing Center.
Hi, I'm Jill Worley. I'm one of the financial aid advisors, and we're always available to help you out.
I'm Angela Dunlap, the tutoring coordinator in the Learning Commons on the Oglesby campus here at IVCC.
And then I'll go ahead and do a quick introduce our student ambassadors. So we have Reed Thomason and Grace McCormick. And something about these two students, not only are they just absolutely fabulous to work with, but they also receive one of our top scholarships here at the college. So we really thought that you want to hear from them, right? You want to know what it was like to get the writing process started and, you know, any tips and tricks. So we're going to have them start us off, and then we'll transition into financial aid and some information about the Writing Center and what you can do to prepare for writing your own essay. So with that, we'll have Reed start us off. And what I want them to address is, you know, how do you condense your experiences into an essay? And then, you know, what it means to write a well-written essay. You know, I feel like sometimes we feel like, yeah, we can throw a bunch of words on a piece of paper, but how do you tell that story? And then, you know, another big thing for students in working with them is they find themselves like finding it a little awkward to talk about themselves. So if you guys could touch on those points, that would be great. And we'll have Reed start us off.
Sure. Hi there. My name's Reed Thomason, and I was one of the 21st Century Scholarship finalists. Some of my involvement at the college is I'm the president of SPAMO, which is our Students of Performing Arts and Music organization, most of the musicals at the show. And then we have the productions that I've done, such as Elf, Broadway Backwards, Legally Blonde. And then I'm also part of our admissions social media hype crew, which basically handles the admissions social media page. And I'll be moving on to Columbia for filmmaking, and that is specifically in screenwriting and directing. However, you did not come here to hear my resume. You came here to hear some tips and tricks. So with that in mind, when you're writing your scholarship essays, you really have to think of it like it's your resume, like you're applying for a job, like you're putting yourself out there for a position, because really you are. You're putting yourself out there to in the position of being the scholarship recipient. So when you're doing that, what is important? When you're writing your resume or when you're writing your essay, it's important to look at the little things. If you're trying to get money from a educational institution, it's the tiny things like checking that the spelling is correct, making sure that it is in the proper format that they asked. Proper format that they asked. All of the small little editing things, because that is what people are going to start to nitpick. If it comes down to it and you and another student are having the same amount of qualifications, the same amount of work into your paper, but one of you has, you know, errors, then you didn't follow the exact instructions, or you have spelling errors, typos, it's going to come down to little things like that. So you need to, first and foremost, make sure that those things are all clear, and make sure that you pay attention to those. Um, as far as selling yourself, I know for a fact it's very awkward at first, because you just went from high school where you made all of these connections, or you have just done your first online semester at IV, and you're still a little skeptical because you haven't actually gotten to meet people. But it's just like going into a job interview. It's about selling yourself, and it's about having that confidence. So do not be afraid to brag about yourself. Do not be afraid to say, yeah, I did this and I did this and I'm very proud of it. If you went into a job interview and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I did pretty well in school. I mean, I was pretty good at my last job. No, you need to tell them, yes, I did great at my last job. I have strong management skills. That's what you'd be doing at a job interview. So when you're getting into school, say, yes, and you're talking about your academic merit. Say, yes, I had high honor roll in high school and I have a 4.0 GPA. Talk about those specifics. Don't be afraid to really get in there and talk about what makes you stand apart from everybody else. Because at the end of the day, it's really just all about selling yourself to a group of people that don't know you. So they really need to know how you differ from everybody else and how you stand out from the pack. Um, Other than that, it's really just about making sure, yeah, that essay is well tuned and that you're putting in what is important. If you look at like the different, once you go in and write your essay, it has the specific requirements. If you're going into something specific, like one that says, talk about how pets enriched your life, or talk about how your life as a member of the LGBTQ community, make sure that you focus in on those things too. They want to know about those experiences specifically. So really, I know it's very cliche, but just read what you're told. Read exactly what they tell you to do. And if you do that exactly and you do it in the right format and you make sure that you read through it, have someone else read through it, and you're doing exactly what you're asked, you're probably going to be able to succeed.
Well said, Reed. We have a question actually, and I'm curious for hearing from both you and Grace. When it comes to writing an essay, would you suggest that a student writes a new one each year? I'm wondering if you've had that experience already. Like, have you had to rewrite one for a different scholarship?
Sure. Personally, I've actually only written the 21st Century Scholar because all of my other scholarships have been performance based. So this might be a better question for Grace, but just off the top of my head, yeah, always, just because you went through your first year and you got a scholarship, and rewrite for the next semester, rewrite for the next year. Just keep, because it's free money, and all it takes is for you to write down and talk about why you should have it. So I would definitely say keep rewriting them.
Thank you. And before I turn it over to Grace, I will say that's one of the tips that I typically tell students is, once you have a solid essay, your story, make those little updates, but you can continue to recycle for all sorts of different scholarship opportunities. So thank you so much, Reed. And we will go ahead and introduce Grace McCormick. She is the 21st Century Scholar, meaning that is the top award that the college, there's many things part of that application, but it's really exciting to have her here and to share some of her tips and tricks.
Thanks, Ethelred. I'm happy to be here, and I'm sure that you all live very busy, interesting lives, and many scholarships require that you write all about them. However, it can be difficult to pick and choose which parts of our lives are well suited for the specific essay prompt and how best to condense them into an award-winning piece of writing. When it comes to scholarship writing, I have found that the more influential the experience to me, the more personal the experience to me, the easier it'll be to write about. If it is deeply important to you, if you know that you can spend a lot of time on it, you can write about it, you can talk about it, it's probably meant for the essay. If it isn't necessarily something you can spend a lot of time on, it probably isn't the best essay material. When applying for scholarships, the most important thing to remember, like Reed said, is that the people determining if you get the scholarship, they're never going to see your face or hear you speak. Often in job interviews or things that require some sort of personality check, you have your mannerisms and your ability to improvise when it comes to a lot of things in that regard. But unfortunately, with written essays, what you see is what you get. So how do you write a good essay? It's different for everybody. So what works for me might not work for you. Just keep that in mind. If what I'm about to show you doesn't work for you at all, don't try and fit to my formula. Work with what works best for you. That's my best advice. That's my most important advice, I think, first and foremost. Work with what works best for you. Personally, I like to start by copying and pasting the essay criteria into a Google Doc and then arrange it so that it becomes an outline. I'm actually going to share my screen with you guys so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So give me just one moment. Okay. So here is I think this is from my freshman year. It's the scholarship essay guidelines for, I think all of the scholarships that I was qualified for. So I went through and basically copy and pasted the entire document, what they needed per each essay, what scholarships I applied for, and depending on the different scholarships that you have, some may require an additional essay, some may require, like Reed said, a performance. If you're applying for drama or music, they often require you to perform for them to see if you qualify for the scholarship. And some might even require that you fill out some sort of interview sheet. It really does depend on what you're applying for, what your major is. So here's just the basic criteria for the general essay. And then I went down and I went through all of the scholarships that I was going to be eligible for. So then I could look up later. I don't know if that's something you guys are willing to do or if it's a little bit different this year, depending on how they want to turn in your scholarships, but this is the basic of it. So how I like to arrange my, gonna get this little bar out of the way. How I like to arrange my outlines is I start with just a general outline, like you would for any in class. You start with the introduction, and then I like to block out how I kind of want my essay to look. How many paragraphs do I think I am going to need? And often the number of paragraphs is determined by how many criteria there are. So for example, I think the scholarship essays have 3 basic criteria. So then you'll add an introduction and a conclusion to that. And once I really have kind of the bare bones of the outline, then I'll start to fill in with my personal experiences, my grades, my accomplishments, things that I've done, what I want to do after I leave IVCC. And then eventually I will be able to have a full essay and I won't even realize it until I'm done. So I didn't get that. Could you try again? Hi, Siri. So here is my 21st Century Scholar essay. I wrote it and I turned it in this year, and that's what led me to be the 21st Century Scholar. And so what I did is I started it just like I showed you. I started out with the outline and then I hit each criteria within each individual paragraph. So as you go down, you kind of realize that you know more about it once you have an organized structure, and then you'll be able to have a full essay without even really realizing it. And the nice thing is personally, I don't like to double space everything until after I've written a lot of my essay. So then I don't really get to see my progress until after I'm done, and it makes it look like I did a lot more work than I did, which is cool. And then I know that the worst part, at least for me, about writing scholarship essays is talking about myself. It's awkward. It feels like bragging. It's uncomfortable. I hate it. And I know a lot of other people do too. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, it's necessary, although you don't actually have to be good at it. Think of the first day of school, the dreaded tell me something about yourself that nobody wants to do, but you have to do all the time. Who do you remember? You remember the person with the most interesting fact. Scholarship essays aren't for a grade, but they are a chance to help you succeed with an education with less debt. I don't know about you, but for free money, I will talk about myself. The important thing to remember is that these people don't know you. They have no idea what kind of person you are, and it's your job to tell them. I know it sucks, but you have to think of yourself objectively. If I was the person deciding who got the scholarship, what about me would be the most interesting, the most impressive? Every single person has interesting and impressive things about them, and it's your job to tell the scholarship board about yours. I know that it's awkward and you're going to hate it, but the better you get at talking about yourself in a way that makes you seem impressive, the better chance you have of winning a scholarship.
Thank you, Grace.
Couple
I think we should just log off because you did the whole presentation. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was very helpful, and I think it's one of those things where if students can hear from another student, they have a better feeling. But we do have a question, and let me find the chat. I think it had to do a little bit with like maybe more so with transitioning. You know, how would I incorporate what scholarships I want to apply for into my essay? Also, how would I talk about my qualifications for said scholarships in the essay without sounding repetitive? They feel like they've got a solid essay, but when it comes to scholarships, they don't want to sound like, you know, again, being repetitive or awkward. So anything that you felt that helped you when you were writing your essay?
Okay, so for the general essay, you're not necessarily naming, I want this scholarship or I want to try for this scholarship. It's more about just as a general, why do you qualify for any scholarship? There will be a separate application to the essay checking what scholarships you want to apply for. And even submitting a general essay automatically does make you qualified to be considered for some scholarships. So you don't have to worry about name dropping which specific scholarships. As long as you fill out the application and you meet the criteria, you will be considered. So you don't need to worry about that. And then talking about the qualifications for said scholarships, I think that depends more on what specifically, if the scholarship that you're applying for requires another specific essay. Otherwise, your application will and your background information will determine whether or not you're qualified for the scholarship. I think if you're talking about additional scholarship essays, I would focus on, well, what is it asking me? What is it for? Is it for a music scholarship and I have to write an essay as well as perform? Well, let me talk about how many stage productions I've been in. How long have I been practicing music? If it's for criminal justice, have you shadowed with any institutions? Do you know, it depends on the scholarship's additional requirements, and you don't have to worry about that for so much as the general essay. That's just, here I am, I'm a qualified person. Please consider me for all of these scholarships.
Yes, and that's the best part of the IVCC Foundation Scholarship, which we haven't even got into, but that's the gift, is that you write one essay, so up to like 3 pages, and you apply that to all of the scholarships that you mark down that you would like to be accounted for or eligible for. So it's kind of a sweet deal because you're very general in it, but like Grace mentioned, if you're doing something that might be outside of the IVCC Foundation Scholarship and they're asking you to really specify how you are qualified, then you do want to mention, and this is how I qualify for this scholarship. So great question, and keep them coming. Anything else you want to mention, Grace, before we transition into what's FAFSA?
I think the only thing to remember is that even if you don't think that there's anything about yourself worth talking about, there is. Everyone has unique and interesting qualities that's going to make them interesting to a scholarship board. You just remember that it doesn't matter so much what you think, that, you know, if you think you're underqualified, that doesn't matter. Make yourself sound qualified.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, we will talk about a very important piece of submitting your application, and that is completing your FAFSA. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jill.
Okay, so you might have to cut me off, Ezra, when I get started about financial aid. Sometimes I can go for a long time, so I'll try to keep it brief. So it is a requirement for the scholarship process to complete your FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. You find it at studentaid.gov. And so it really kind of does walk you through it, but there's a few things I wanted to let you know. Right now, there are 2 FAFSAs that are available. There's one for 2021, but you want to fill out the FAFSA for the year 21-22. That's very important, 21-22. And you'll be using yours and your parents' taxes from 2019. And Azra is very helpful here. She's pulling up. So right here, you can see FAFSA form. If you are new to the FAFSA process, you want to start at the very top right there. And again, you, if you're a dependent student, if your parents declare you on their taxes, you will need a parent on the FAFSA as well. You will each need to set up an ID. That's part of the process as you're going through the FAFSA. One of the most important things I want to tell you when you're filling out your ID for the FAFSA, especially if you're still in high school, do not use your high school email, because this email will be the one that follows you all the way through college. So same thing with parents. Parents don't necessarily want to use a work email. Have it be a personal email, because you will use this same login for every single year that you complete the FAFSA. So when you go into the FAFSA, make sure you're doing 21-22. Make sure that you have your 2019 taxes in front of you. Another big tip I want to make sure that I give is when you are going through the process of the FAFSA, you're going to be given an opportunity to use what's called the data retrieval tool. That allows you to link your taxes directly from the IRS. So it helps to have your taxes right in front of you. You want to enter your information, especially your address, exactly in there, because the government's picky and they want it to be exactly what your taxes say. If you're able to link your taxes, that just speeds up the process. So once you have filled in all the questions for the FAFSA, and both you and a parent have to electronically sign it using that ID that you're going to set up with your email and a password, you're going to submit that. And then we are going to the financial aid office is going to receive that information in, and that's what we will use to process your financial aid. You might say, but I know I don't qualify for financial aid. So why do I have to do this? It is a requirement for the scholarship process. There are some donors that require it. There are different steps. So it is something that you do have to do. It's definitely not going to hurt you. And we have had students that didn't think they qualified for financial aid, and they found out that they did. So I highly encourage anybody that has any questions. We're always available. We're here from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday, Thursday, Friday, and we're here from 8 to 7 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And good luck. Don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions. Did I leave anything out?
That is perfect. And one big thing that we'll mention is that, so the IVCC Foundation Scholarship application, it really meets 2 things for students. So it's merit, meaning like academically, what are you doing and how are you really thriving in that area? And then need-based, meaning that, okay, you might be, first generation, first in your family. And so maybe your parents didn't really think about saving. And so that's where it kind of can meet the 2. So that's why the financial aid application and all of that is very important to submit. And again, you might not think that you'll qualify, but again, there's that merit piece where you can still win a scholarship based on that.
I did want to throw something else out that I forgot to mention. If you are not qualified to fill out the FAFSA for federal funds, contact us anyway, because there's an alternative application for funds through the state of Illinois, that we might be able to help you with as well.
Fantastic. And Jill will be with us. So if anyone has any specific questions and would like to send something through the chat, feel free to do so.
Yes.
And with that, we'll go ahead and transition into the Writing Center presentation of how to make a solid essay. So take it away, Amy.
Hi. Alrighty. So I feel like our students did such a good job. I don't know how much more I have to add to that. But I'm going to try and just kind of walk you through mostly probably some general essay writing review. And then hopefully at the end I can answer any questions that you might have. So before you start, the most important thing is to carefully read the directions. As both students said, you can really write a great essay, but if you don't follow the guidelines, that could get you disqualified. So note the requirements and carefully follow rules on page number, word count, and format. If the format is not specified, use standard MLA with size 12 Times New Roman font and your lines double spaced. Another helpful piece of advice is to review and brainstorm all of the prompts. Don't censor yourself or lock yourself into one idea too soon in the process. Instead, design a couple of outlines to help expand on different ideas you might have, much like Grace showed you. And then use those outlines to create, patterns of organization, or, maybe just realize something new that you didn't know you wanted to write about. Finally, conduct and add any necessary research. And really, before you even start, everyone keeps saying, free money. But be prepared to write more than one draft, because in the end, you are getting paid to write, a 4 or 5 page paper. So do your best. Next, we're going to do some general review of the parts of the essay. According to Google, most introductions are only 3 to 5 sentences long. In person, you can be judged on site by any number of things: your clothes, your smile, your posture. On paper, your first impression is this first paragraph. Please do not start with, "Hi, my name is." Instead, consider a quote, interesting fact, or rhetorical question that can engage your audience. Also, avoid mentioning the writing within itself, like saying, "I'm writing this essay to tell you." Instead, offer some context or background. Complete your introduction with a thesis statement that gives the audience a preview of your essay's main points. Keep in mind that it might be easier to write your thesis statement after you have written most of your essay and have already developed your main ideas. In other words, it's going to be easier to alter one sentence to fit into an essay than designing an entire essay around one sentence. The standard is to have 3 body paragraphs between the introduction and the conclusion. Each body paragraph should begin with a topic sentence written in your own words that creates a clear focus. These ideas should be developed with supportive evidence. Then in closing, in your own words, you should describe how these pieces of evidence relate to your point. Sometimes it can be easier to think of each paragraph as its own little essay with its own introduction and, focus and conclusion. However, keep in mind that although they should stand alone, they should still be working together to provide a bigger picture, which is why you deserve scholarship. While some sections might flow together naturally, others may require transitional statements or phrases to create smooth movement from one paragraph to the next. The final paragraph of the essay, the conclusion, should wrap up all of your ideas and summarize why you think you would be a great scholarship recipient. Do not repeat, but reflect on the thesis from your introduction. Don't introduce new information. Instead, use this paragraph to thank the committee for their time and consideration. Finally, provide a powerful closing thought. Remember, this is your last chance to make a good impression. A few other helpful tips to remember as you write are to accentuate the positive, but don't lie. As our students said, sometimes it can be really hard to kind of brag about yourself or put yourself out there. So just try to associate yourself with positivity. For example, instead of saying, "I don't know what I want to study because I'm not sure what kind of career I want yet," consider saying something like, "I'm looking forward to opportunities to explore different career paths and find a job I will really enjoy." I turned that negative into a positive. Show your personality, but maintain a professional tone. A good rule of thumb is to speak of yourself in the first person, I, me, we, us, but avoid referring to the reader as you. Use vivid language, avoid cliches, avoid unnecessary repetition. Staying organized will help you stay focused. Avoid errors by triple checking grammar and spelling. And know your audience. Write for the reader specified in the prompt. Another important thing to keep in mind when you write about yourself is to try to strike a balance between distinguishing yourself and oversharing. Unless there's a clear, compelling prompt to do so, avoid disclosing any really personal traumatic events. For example, if a student were pursuing a scholarship for psychology, he or she could mention how a therapist helped them as a child without necessarily telling us why they needed therapy to begin with. Keep in mind these few pages may be someone else's first and last impression of you. So generally, try to avoid making your audience feel uncomfortable or like they're invading your privacy by reading your work. Many scholarships are narrative or persuasive. A good narrative essay includes a significant event that reveals something important. The language is vivid, the images are concrete and memorable, the writing is chronicle, and the story is told in the order it happened. A good persuasive essay convinces your reader to adopt your point of view or take a specific course of action. In this case, you'll probably be trying to convince someone to grant you a scholarship. Although emotions can play a role in both styles of writing, a narrative essay depends greatly on physical sense, while persuasive essays may rely more on statistics and scientific facts. So prepare for any necessary research if you decide to go that route. It's always a good idea to read your essay out loud before submitting it. On your final review of your work, you might wish to use this checklist just to make sure that you have everything covered. Does the essay reach all the requirements as laid out in the prompt? Is the introduction engaging? Does it offer background? Does the final sentence preview your main points? Does each paragraph have one clear focus? Is each paragraph developed with evidence and an explanation? Have you used transitional words and phrases to create a smooth flow of ideas throughout the work? Does the conclusion reflect on and wrap up the main ideas? Is there a powerful closing message? Is there someone else that can read this for you to double check your spelling and grammar and mechanics? The answer is yes, there is. If you feel like you might need some more help or information or just a fresh pair of eyes, feel free to reach out to the IVCC Writing Center. Our tutors are here to help you at any point of the writing process, from brainstorming to final formatting. You can find more information on our website, www.ivcc.edu/writing center, for making appointments or email submissions. You can also find links for a lot of great handouts and other resources, such as the IVCC Style Guide and grammar and writing cheat sheets. Something I find particularly helpful is a blank outline template, much like the one that Grace built for us on her screen. And you can find that under the General Writing Resources link on our website. The Writing Center hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday online, 8:30 to 1 on Fridays. During these hours, we do have at least one tutor standing by for email and online consultations. However, we do suggest giving us a day or two to assure that we can get to your paper, read it, reply to it, and return it to you with enough time to make necessary revisions. Due to current circumstances, our on-campus hours are limited. However, I am available here Monday through Thursday. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm here from 10 in the morning until 3 p.m. On Wednesdays, 8 in the morning until 1 p.m. And on Thursdays, 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. During those times, you can stop in and see me in the Learning Commons in D201 on the main campus, or you can call me at 815-224-0637 to set up an appointment. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amy. And that was very helpful. I am curious, and I'm going to put, Laura, Angela, and yourself, Amy. Are there things that you could share that, when reading an essay that really stood out, and things that they shouldn't do? Like, oh gosh, please take this essay away from me.
I will say, I think I chose the example I did about positive thinking because it is something that I see quite a bit. IVCC is a local small community college, and a lot of people come here when they don't really know what they want to do yet. I came here when I didn't know what to do yet. I spent 10 years here figuring out what I wanted to do. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying it. I do think that there is something wrong with just repeatedly stressing that you don't know what you're doing and you're just wanting to hang out. Like I said, remember, you're asking people for money. So
I would say that the things that I notice are really, really, really bad grammar, punctuation, spelling, like really bad. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. We know you're human, so you can make mistakes, but it shouldn't be like every sentence has something wrong with it. You should also make sure that you meet, this has been mentioned before, that you meet the guidelines. So if it says 2 to 3 pages, that doesn't mean 1 page and 1 sentence on the second page. It doesn't mean 1 paragraph. Those are going to get discarded very easily by the people who are reading them, because you haven't put in the effort. People do in the foundation want to give you scholarship money. They do. They want to give it to you. All you need to do is follow the directions. and they're not difficult directions. They don't say stand on your head and write this. It's 12 point font. It's 2 to 3 pages. You have done enough in your life to write 2 to 3 pages using the guidelines they're giving you. So those are the things that I would say are what I've noticed.
Thank you. I think that's huge. And knowing that you also were part of the review committee of reading quite a few of these essays. And I can relate to the whole, come on, it was like 2 to 3 pages. That's it. And we were very, very lucky. I think, remind me, Quentin, was it 2017 or 2018? Really great year where everyone who applied got a scholarship. So that even maybe included some with the 1 page or 2 pages. So there's money out there.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago that 100% of applicants received a scholarship. This year, or I'm sorry, last year, I believe it was around 80%. So still a pretty high success rate.
Yeah. Anything else from our Writing Center folks tutoring that you want to share before we go into a little bit of the foundation scholarship requirements? Okay, we'll have Quentin take it away.
Okay, so I am just going to start the conversation on the specifics of the IVCC Foundation. So you've heard some really, really great advice from students, from IVCC staff. So what is it we're actually asking for, the foundation itself? And so the first thing you need to know, the most important thing, put this on your calendar, is Thursday, February 11th is the deadline to submit that. And that is a firm deadline for sure. So you need to have applied and uploaded your essay by 9 p.m. on Thursday, February 11th. Super important to do that. And as Jill in financial aid mentioned earlier, you do have to submit that 21-22 FAFSA by that time as well. And Jill did a really good job of kind of giving an overview of that. But just know you have to do both of those things by 9 p.m. We definitely want to see that. So there's that. So again, what is it we're actually asking for students to write? Now I'm just going to cover, there's 3 criteria. I'm going to cover the first of those criteria, and that is educational and professional goals. So basically what the foundation committee wants to hear is, why are you attending IVCC? And Amy did a really good job of talking about, okay, let's say you did come here as a undecided student, which Amy referenced she did, which I did myself. That's totally fine. You certainly don't want to harp on it. You don't want to talk about, well, I'm just going to hang out for a while, like Amy said. But what you can say is something along the lines of, I'm attending IVCC. I am currently undecided. IVCC allows me to explore different career paths without spending a lot of money, like at a 4-year university. So you can turn it around and use it as a strength. But if you are decided, if you do have ideas of what you want to do, list those. Why are you coming to IVCC? If you're going to do nursing, it doesn't hurt to talk about the strength of IVCC's nursing program. It'd be super helpful to talk about why you got into that program, because, we may see 18 students who say, I'm attending IVCC and I want to do athletic training. Well, tell us why you want to do athletic training. Was an athletic trainer super important to you during your high school career? Or is your mom an athletic trainer, or something along those lines? So it's super helpful to tie in specific concrete examples. We in admissions deal a lot with students who, they have a career path in mind. And sometimes, we wonder how much research went into it. And so if you can detail that research, that's really helpful. If applicable, what or who inspired your decision? Back to the nursing thing, if you just really want to help people because you've always had a passion for that, and nursing is a really great way to do that, tell us that. Tell the committee that. If it was a certain person who inspired you to do so, list them, list how important their input was. And then we also want to know what your educational and professional goals beyond IVCC are. So talk and listen, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. Nobody expects you to have that done, but it doesn't hurt to talk about, I want to be an EMS or a paramedic. And eventually I want to move to Chicago, or eventually I want to stay here and work at a specific place. Again, nobody's going to hold you to this decision. We're not going to check up on you in 10 years to make sure it worked out. But if you have an idea what it is you want to eventually reach, maybe it's med school, maybe it's a career with Epic Video Game Company or something like that. Again, concrete examples of why you're doing what you're doing are super helpful. So that's the first requirement, educational and professional goals. I'm going to turn it over to Azarette for the next 2.
Yeah, so the next piece that they want you to write about is involvement in community service. So I love that they even put down, if none, please explain, because, well, we all can mention or share the experience of knowing that we weren't able to be in person and do school events, clubs, and activities. So you can say something as straightforward as that, but also mentioning that you are also juggling maybe 2 part-time jobs while doing online school, or while caring for, siblings, or assisting your parents. I mean, those are the kinds of things that they want to know. How are you doing it? How are you juggling it? And then there's also the, students that, were heavily involved beginning freshman through their senior year, and they want to be able to share a specific experience, whether they served on a community service project and what that really did for them, or whatever it might be, something that will capture the attention of the audience of what that service project meant to you. even honors received is important. You know, you may have been elected to something, whether it's student government or just a really cool recognition that you want to share with those that are reading your essay. I'm curious though, if we have our students still on, you know, did you feel as if you had to list everything, or was it just, you know, I really want to touch on this one thing?
There definitely was a point where I was like, I should, you know, list everything that I've ever done ever. But there, and I did at first, but then I realized that really does take up a lot of space, at least for me, who was in everything all the time. You know, I was one of those kids that got to school early and left school late. But I think that to some extent, yeah, naming what you've been a part of is important. But maybe the student council quote unquote participation where you went to 3 meetings to get the t-shirt and then you weren't, that's not necessary. You know, pick stuff that was really important to you and what shaped you as a person, shaped your high school career. Like I was in student council, I ended up being student council president. That's stuff like that is important. But me going to the drama club for 2 meetings and then realizing I didn't have time, that doesn't need to go on there. And to who the person who asked is dividing points into 2 paragraphs aloud. Yeah, I mean, when we say try and have a structure for your essay, it doesn't mean that it has to be exactly the same structure as everyone else's. It just means that you need to be organized. And your organization can definitely be in whatever way you decide is best. You know, it doesn't have to look the same, just has to be organized. So you can totally divide your points into 2 paragraphs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grace. I think, yeah, being able to really speak to the ones that you are really excited about to share, not just like, yeah, sat in a drama meeting. It was good stuff. The next big piece, and I think this is one where our students struggle with, is really talking about the financial need. And this is different for everyone and any special circumstances. So, you know, you might find yourself like, well, you know, I am well off, or gosh, I don't even know how to ask for help that I do need this money, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to pay for my books. So there's all sorts of different reasons. It's just really trying to figure out how to best convey it and what that looks like. So, you know, they do want to know, why are you applying to this? And it could be, you know, something where you have 4 other siblings and you know, you might be the second in college. And so you see your parents trying to figure out how to make college a reality for everyone. And that's something that they want to know. Or it might be a thing, like I had mentioned earlier, you might be first in your family and, you know, saving for college wasn't really an option. And so you share, you know, why you need, you know, not only the scholarship money, but also you have to do XYZ in supporting yourself or helping your family. And so that's the kind of thing that is really important. And I don't know, it can get a little weird at times when reading it on the other end. And I kind of want to ask Angela if she could pop in again. You know, what are ways that individuals can really talk about this part in the essay? You're muted. You're muted.
I turned on my video, but I forgot to turn on my audio. I apologize. That is a really good question. And I do see that that students struggle with that when they're writing their essay. As has been pointed out before, be honest. You know, don't make up a sad story so that you get money. Be honest about it. And address it as best you can. I don't know that I have a formula that works for this particular question because everybody's situation is different. So trying to think if there's anything else I can add to that. You want to definitely address this. This is part of those requirements I talked about earlier. So don't just say, oh, I don't have any requirements, so I'm going to skip it. You need to acknowledge that you read this part of the requirement by saying something, even if you don't have a lot to say. A lot of students will say, I would like help to pay for books and getting to school, or those are all parts of it. You know, just paying for rent and food is part of going to school. You have to have a place to live, a roof over your head, and transportation and food in order to study. You can't do that very well or easily if you don't have those things. So mention that if that's an issue for you. And as Ezra said, there are many students who have parents who you're going to stay at your parents' house until you get through college, and you don't really have any issues, and that's great for you. But don't just ignore this part. Think of if you're in welding, there's a lot of welding things you have to do, or automotive. So think about what you might need. As a nurse, you need scrubs for clinicals. So think about those things that you might need that aren't just textbooks, and include that in your paragraph.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And even just mentioning what your next, couple of years will look like. Maybe it's a matter of, I need to save as much money because I need to transfer to a university. And we all know 4-year university colleges, I mean, they're expensive. So it's okay to go ahead and share that. And that's something to keep in mind. So with that, we kind of gave you what they're looking for, and we wanted to share some winning samples of students that have received scholarship money based on their story. And so what I want to do is pull up the actual essay to give you an idea. And if someone, Quentin, would you be able to look at the chat and see if there's anything we can address while we're pulling these up?
Yeah, absolutely. So a student asked that her mom went to IVCC. Should she mention that? And I would say absolutely. I think it's good to mention that. It's clear that your mom understood the importance of attending IVCC, and hopefully she had a good experience. If she had a terrible experience, I wouldn't mention that, but hopefully she had a good experience. And I would definitely mention how that plays into your decision to attend IVCC as well.
Thank you. So we were lucky enough, Donna from the foundation, she oversees this process, and I had asked, can we get a sample of what is a winning essay? And so she shared a male and female perspective. And so just giving you an idea of what this intro looks like. We talked about all of that. Now, what does that look like reading it? And so this isn't the way to write the essay, but just to give you an idea. And one thing I really wanted to mention is that this student, when talking about, if I were to look at this at a glance, I can tell chemistry, chemical engineering is definitely a thing. So that shows the reader that, this student read in wanting to talk about their educational plans. Now, if we go on to the next, big paragraph, they're talking about extracurricular activities. And I can tell immediately they're mentioning a couple of things. So they're addressing what needs to, what the committee is looking for. And then as you go on, you'll see also, with my college education comes the issue of money. And that's that essay we just talked about, or the paragraph we just talked about, addressing that. And this student is just talking about wanting to cover the costs themselves, and that they don't want to have to depend on their parents. And that's perfectly fine to be able to just share that. And then they do such a great job just wrapping it all up, saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I talked about, and this is why, a scholarship would be a huge benefit. And that's kind of it. It's not anything super just out there, and they had to tell us, what year they were born and how that influenced their, I don't know, decision to do anything. So keep that in mind. I wanted to share the other one, and this is more of a female perspective. And obviously you'll see a little bit more of things white out because it might be specific into that student's life. But, you know, they're talking about maybe a story or something, an experience that really played a role in their decision and what to do. And immediately I can see they want to be a nurse. They want to go into the medical field. They talk a little bit of what they've done. They mentioned, so someone said, can I, you know, split up 2 points? This person did. They mentioned that they did something in high school and then also are pulling in something that they've done here as an IVCC student. This student did a great job of being able to sell themselves and saying that, like, this is the GPA I've earned, and this is the stuff that I've done while I was a student at this high school. And then this is, you know, as simple as that they were talking about, you know, all the jobs they were able to juggle, and how something specific that happened to them and how financially it was hard to come up with money. So just 2 different perspectives, 2 different stories. And I think this might give you a better idea of what the committee is looking for. So keep that in mind.